sat down with just an incredible woman, Meshell Baker. I found her on a podcast. I was listening to her guest on this podcast, Spotify, iTunes show, and I just said, this woman's incredible. Everything she said was resonating with me, so I reached out, got together with her, and we're doing some really cool things together now. So I wanted you to hear from her what she's all about. You're absolutely going to love this episode. You just listen to Meshell, and she radiates confidence. And I love talking to her every single time we get together. I know you will too. She's talking about your confidence, how to ignite that, and how to make it work for you in business. And there's just so many takeaways here. Let's go check this out. Hi, everybody. Thanks for jumping on Giant TV here for this episode. Really fired up for this. Going to be incredible. I've got Meshell Baker on here with me, who's Chief Confidence Igniter and Authentic Selling Alchemist. Hello, Meshell.
Hello, Paul Hitchcock. Always fabulous to spend time with you and have discussion.
You're so nice. Well, I got to tell people listening that just real quick the way we met. So Meshell guests on a very influential, awesome podcast that streams on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere. And I've been listening to it for quite a long time. And I was listening to Meshell on there. And I said to myself, this woman's incredible. What she was saying just resonates with me. So I reached out and stalked her. And we got on a Zoom and started talking and just hit it off. And we've got now some really great things going on together, collaborating on some things, a lot with Vistage Chairs and Vistage community. So I'm really fired up to have this discussion. And Meshell, let's jump into this. So what we're talking about here. So first of all, a little bit about you, big picture of what you're doing with businesses, and then touching on what we were talking about offline with Vistage Chairs, who have the second round in their careers, successful first run at doing stuff, and now they're building a practice. So we could start there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we were our discussion was around mindset. So the characteristics and the traits of success, right? And it's an intriguing principle of what happens sometimes when people have successfully been successful. So they've consistently been successful, and then they step into an endeavor or a venture where they have a struggle, where it's not as easy as they thought it was, where it's not a slam dunk or home run, and they come face to face with being uncomfortable, with being uncertain, right? To being it's almost like an inconvenience. Like everything I touch turns to gold. What is happening, right? Why am I feeling copper instead of gold and platinum? And so getting into that mindset and really having that person sit and delineating what does success mean, and understand that there's no certainty around success. Everyone at some juncture will be met with a failure, a setback, a disappointment. And your willingness to learn out loud, your willingness to be uncomfortable, your willingness to step away from the ego and the pride and really hone in on that why is everything.
Well, yeah, well said. And because getting to sort of what you're focused on too is you're speaking around the country to incredible organizations on this topic, and you go in and work with businesses. And so before we drill down into maybe a solopreneur like a Vistage Chair, what are you doing with the companies? Where is your focus there?
Yes, so I've been working with organizations around employee excellence and imposter syndrome. So those are the two main topics. So depending on the size, if it's an SMB, it's often a company-wide meeting or organizational training, and it's around that excellence and that endeavor to be willing to be curious. So the main theme of what I work is to look at where people are operating in judgment of circumstances, situations, and other people versus embracing and observing how they can be curious. Right. So what happens when we go into judgment saying that this is wrong, this is right, this shouldn't have happened, this should have, you should have, all of those are judgments, period. It is really, you have cut off all possibility when you discern and dictate what it is instead of asking the question, how can I leverage this? Okay, I see what happened and I see where it missed the mark. So what can I learn from this so I can continue moving forward towards the mark, towards the milestone, towards the target, right? It's never necessarily wrong, right? And I always say, as long as people aren't dying, we're not killing people, it's not a horrible thing. It's just a learning. And learning out loud is where people often struggle, especially adults, right? I always say, if you want to learn, if you want to know how to learn out loud, go watch toddlers.
Yeah.
Right? They don't care what you think about them. They don't care if there's no such thing or right or wrong. It's just straight up, I am experiencing something I've never done before, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. And that's where incredible entrepreneurs are able to change and impact their industries, the lives of the people that work for them, the customers and the clients they're working with, is when your target is for that, whatever you're creating, that someone experiences a transformation, that they are actually changed by what you've created.
So this is inside the company. Then are you working, is it the teams where you see there's some dysfunction there,
Yes.
Sales teams, operations teams, and
Yeah.
how do you get into the weeds there? What's going on?
Yeah. So, for example, one of the conferences I recently did, Women in Trucking. So organizations like, I'll be working with Daimler and Volvo and other companies that come, and they'll hear me in a breakout talking about, championing confidence in the workplace, or imposter syndrome, right? Ditch the imposter is another one. And so they'll hear that talk and they'll, reach out to me, and then we'll schedule something to go in. And what it is, looking at how to give them tools that they can immediately implement. So they'll either bring me in for an event, which is one talk, which I always say, when you hire me or bring me in for one presentation, that is just information inspiration, right? So
Right.
people inspired to like, rah, 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 this is awesome. Now, what people actually are looking for is they're looking for behavioral changes. And that requires people to be engaged, that requires feedback, that requires coaching, and that requires the learning. Right. So they come in, they learn, they get it wrong, they come back and they learn, and they're reinforced through the process. And that takes time. And I have those programs as well. And so what it depends if they just want that, inspiration, which generally happens is based off of that. Some of the companies will then go, yes, we want to continue to move forward with some actual behavioral changes. And it's just that right now people are, I always say, we live in a world where you're really getting adults who are struggling, like, within the employee level of workers, they have this expectation. And I always say, my term is, the math ain't mathin'. They have an expectation that work and life will be a certain way. However, they are not actually generating or being involved in their life in a manner that would generate those outcomes. Like, one of the questions I often ask people is, how many people want your life and your job to be amazing, when I'm talking to employees or to groups, and everybody's hands go up for the most part. And I'm like, well, tell me, how many people here did something that with certainty was amazing in the last couple of days? Quiet. Mm-hmm. I'll give you a week, right? Yeah. How many of y'all in this room did something that was amazing? And then so then it goes into making them aware. So now they have an experience of, oh, now let's talk about what amazing looks like and why it's important for you to give an incredible outcome. Like, there's no such thing as a bad job. Or a job you don't like. You've actually signed up for a miserable life. Helping
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
No such thing as, oh, I don't like my job. No, you actually, what you've committed to is having a miserable life. So how do you help employees? How do you help people to actually realign in their behaviors and their thoughts and the process of what they do daily, so that they can start to see and have benefits, and which makes them more productive, and then the company becomes more profitable. because the research has shown the more confident employees are, the more productive they are, the more profitable the company is, period. It's the way it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, every time we talk, I steal sayings from you and I use them for my own business. So I just picked up 4 or 5 right now. But I got to ask you, because we were talking the Vistage chairs. I know, yeah, you and I, you've talked to some and we're doing some events and things like that. Really excited about that. But when you look at it, the Vistage chairs, uh, very successful. Now they're building a practice, and it's challenging. It's very hard to build a practice like that. I mean, it's a big ask and so forth. But winners win and do stuff. But how would you approach someone who's been very successful in business? Now they're scrapping and scraping, building up this practice. What sort of issues you go into around that?
Yeah. So, well, one of the things that I really would clearly understand with that person is, the why. So that's Simon Sinek, right? Start with why. So clearly understand why you are doing what you're currently doing. If it's causing you this much angst, I really want to understand why you're still doing it, right? So
Right.
getting clear on that, and then generally they have something that they're passionate about, and it doesn't matter what the passion is. It just matters that it's meaningful to you, the individual, and then looking at and tracing back the fact that you've already had successes. So let's borrow those experiences and apply them to where you are now. So how can you take what you've already been incredible, you've already been amazing, how we can strip down the specificity of your success and generalize it so that it can be applied to where you are now and help you to move forward in the similar manner that you did. It's never going to be the same. It's going to be a similar manner to what you've already done. If you've already succeeded, you will always succeed. It's just that people sometimes, our human brain likes to remember negative more than it likes to remember positive.
Interesting. So when you say that, it doesn't matter what the career was before this new endeavor. It could be anything. It could be a coach. It could be leader of a big, corporation. But you're saying borrow from that, apply it to the new scenario. Is that behavioral things that you're talking about, or organizational things? Like, what is it that you borrow from here and use over here?
It depends on the person. So I would tell people it's actually emotional. We forget that our mentality is our reality. So the easiest thing I always tell people, whatever you speak about, you bring about. So, and you only speak about what you're thinking, and you're only thinking what you're believing. So it always goes back to the belief. And what happens is when things don't go well over a period of time, sometimes people get entrenched in what they see with their physical eyes, that becomes the landscape of what they're talking about and their experience, instead of honing in on reminding themselves, look, I did this, I did that, right? Sometimes you got to be your own cheerleader. So there is a critic in our head. Biologically, human beings are 70% inclined to negative thoughts. I always tell people a negative thought has 3 times the hit power on your endorphins than a positive.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
think about the last time you saw an accident. Who doesn't slow down? Think about the last time, right? All the things that are negative, they impact people at a higher intensity than something that's positive. So staying positive, which means looking for favorable outcomes, believing that no matter what has happened, it will still work in your favor. Right? That's the thing. And so getting to that and remembering, if you created success in the past, how do you reapply that? And then sometimes there's some refining, because some people have created success that they completely controlled, and now they're in an arena of unknown. So it's embracing how to create success in the unknown and with uncertainties. That's a whole different and that's where I generally work with people, is that helping people to be able to be certain of success when they're sitting in uncertainty.
Oh, that's an amazing way to put it. And so there's so many things I'm thinking about as you're talking. So it's mindset, it's the things you said, but then you marry that with execution, correct? Obviously I'm focused on execution with folks I'm working with. But they go hand in hand, right? You got to have the mindset, and that's very powerful, but then execute is part of it, right?
Yes. So I'll give you an example. An organization that had roughly, 200 employees. Somebody on the leadership team heard me speak, brought me in. So they, I had a committee. I sat there on a screen with like 8 people who were giving me the sniff test. And they were like, by the end of like 20 minutes, they were like, oh my God, if she could do this in 20 minutes, we got to have her. Right. So they brought me in. And again, I came in and I worked with the leaders first. So the leaders, when we did the work with the leaders, what we discovered through that training was that they actually had dealt with so many challenges with their teams that they were reinforcing the challenges. They were in judgment of employees, of the situation. It's not going to work. This person is not going to do well. So it was just in the conversation that they were having amongst themselves was complaining, right? So we often, like when you're in it, you don't see it, right? It's that whole, you can't read the label if you're in the bottle, right?
Yeah.
So it's taking that step back and giving them activities where they were able to recreate the possibility of what they wanted their team to be like, right? And they implement that over time. And then we bring in the whole organization and then did a, training with them as well. And then follow up. So again, it is the recreation, the reimagining of the possibilities, and it's creating a blueprint of what that looks like. And now so in place of what this is how you normally respond, this would be a favorable response. This would be a more curious instead of, right? So those are the activities we go through, is really about communication, because that's what is the differentiator in someone who is a leader who is elevating their team or organization versus someone who is basically just giving people marching orders.
Yeah. And as you're talking, you're talking about a structure there. I see the components, whether it's at a business or an individual solopreneur. That structure seems to me would be intact in both areas. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, the one thing I impress upon people is the most successful people on the planet always have mindset coaches. They always have mindset, like they don't just do, just performance. Performance is one thing. Mindset, remember, performance is how you actually use your time. Time is finite. Like how you're hitting targets. What are you doing through your day, right? What are you doing? Performance is about doing. Doing is finite. 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. We all get the same. What's infinite, unending, and unlimited is our mind. And when you actually start to operate through utilizing your mind as the source to help you move forward, you can leapfrog any situation.
God, I love it. So many takeaways. I know your time is limited and you've been very generous here, Meshell. I know you've got something else going on. We were talking before we started filming this. So thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Yes, and Meshell, I know we're going to be talking again very soon. So appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.